Welcome to Smartless.
Smart.
I can't wait this is so exciting. This is so exciting.
Okay.
I'm going to nerd out, guys.
Okay.
So
William Shatner?
It's Chewbacca.
well, close.
It's got
Close.
Chewbacca.
Our guest today, I'm so glad we got him here. I wasn't sure he'd be available because, as they say, he's hot right now in the Hollywood.
That's triple hot.
He really is all anyone talks about right now. At age 11, he was a Texas State swimming champion before throwing in the towel. Don't worry, he still had a Speedo on. And heading to the Golden State and then pursuing an acting career. He's become quite the staple in American culture in the last few years, being in the forefront of some major movie and television franchises. The internet refers to him as the ultimate daddy. But probably most importantly, he did a reading with me of Goodnight Oscar only a few years ago.
Oh, my God.
Please welcome my pal, Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal.
No way.
No way.
Pedro. Hello. Good morning. Oh, this is a good
How
guy.
exciting.
Here we go. You can just pull over, turn your car off, and enjoy this.
No, keep it on.
charisma.
It keeps going through the speakers. Pedro Pascal. Oh my gosh.
No,
Yeah,
no.
Pedro-
Charisma on this guy.
Nope, can't do it. Putting the curtain back on.
No, he
Bye.
can't do it. Oh, he had to bail.
Oh, no, where'd you go?
He had to
No, he had to bail. He had
Just
to bail.
kidding.
Getting a call.
Where are you, Pedro, right now?
Where am I? I'm in
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
Oh, you are? Okay, good.
City of Angels.
And in your house, it looks like an empty interrogation room.
It's like I'm in an empty interrogation room
Okay.
in Los Angeles.
Dude, what?
Can I move the camera around to even make it look
Make
even
sure we
scarier
don't
than it?
see
There really
anything we
is
shouldn't
absolutely
see.
no care.
Wow, you're really in an empty room.
I've been abducted,
No.
But they let you do a
but they're
podcast.
fans. But they're fans of your podcast.
Wow, that's good.
Now, let me say something. It's true I'm into daddies. You've seen Scotty, but I'm not hitting on you. I'm just celebrating how cool it is that the internet has collectively referred to you as our daddy and that you embrace it. I've seen you in interviews and stuff like you kind of like that. It's kind of cool. And look, you got the scruff going on. You wear the glasses.
I just want people to like me.
Well,
Still.
just keep talking. This is just, you know, the kid.
yeah.
This is what the kids call you. You've got what the kids call Riz. Do we know what Riz is?
No.
Yeah.
No, what's Riz?
Charisma. Okay.
Charisma.
Charisma.
My kids would say they call it W Riz. Got that W Riz.
Wild
And they get
charisma.
real embarrassed.
I want to talk about Craig Mazin when we get to it.
We'll get to Craig
'cause
Mazin.
We're not talking about Craig
The
Mazin.
amazing Mazin.
I want to continue talking about Goodnight Oscar. We have to just a little
buddy.
bit. You have to invite me. No, we have
Buddy,
to. It's because
you gotta
the
go see
opening
that.
was
Good Lord.
recently. It was,
Yeah.
And the production is directed by Lisa Peterson, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
Incredibly
So-
well directed.
I did a staged reading for Lisa Peterson 23 years ago at the Tabor. That's where I met her.
Oh, wow.
It was part of the, I can't remember what the label of the theater festival New Works sort of season that it was. And we're old. That's my point. Let's move on.
Lisa's amazing.
Did you like her then?
I loved her. It was amazing. I was desperate to get, a job in professional theater, no matter where I was, whether it was Los Angeles or New York.
Did that one end up going to stage?
It did not. If it did not go with me.
Did you? So
would've
Pedro,
known.
did you? You're from Texas, which I did not know.
Yeah.
You started. Did you start? Were you doing theater in Texas?
No.
Before you? No.
So I was born in Chile.
Yeah, in Santiago, Chile.
Yeah.
And I have to
Let's,
say
let's
this.
not brag about the research, Sean.
No, but I want to say this to you. En la escuela secundaria, en la clase de español me llamaba Santiago porque otro chico eligió Juan.
Pero qué bien, Sean. Estoy Santiago, perdona.
Do you know how to speak Spanish, Sean?
Qué orgullo.
Sí, un poquito.
I said in Spanish class in high school, my name was Santiago because some other kid picked Juan, which is Sean.
Will, this is a great opportunity for you to
do one of your characters.
launch the Spanish character you were working on.
Well, I would like to, but my character is from Bolivia, sadly, so he's not. He's
that's
close
really...
by. He's very close by, but I'm so sorry.
That's better than the arbitrary Latino accents I have
Pedro,
shared with the world.
By the way, Pedro, I do want
to.
Sean, Jason, you can go, but I do want. Now that we're in South America, and we're talking about this, Pedro. I got to know you, not personally, but like a lot of people from watching Narcos. I thought you were so fucking great in Narcos. I loved Narcos, and you were so great in it. And it was like, I'm sure it was one of those things you've been working for years, and then everybody's like, "Hey, look at this guy." And you're like, "Hey, man, I've been around for a long time." Right? Was that kind of how that happened?
Filled with talent for years.
It was. Narcos was a really lucky job, and I think it came on the coattails of the big fight of Oberyn Martell in the Mountain in Game of Thrones, and the people over at Netflix realizing that I wasn't living past that episode, and then
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, sorry everybody.
From 10 years ago.
See, I'm not a Game of Thrones fan, so I've never watched
It's not that you're not a fan, you just haven't seen it.
It was a splashy guest role of the season, sort of at the height of the game's popularity.
So good.
The games. Good God. It's early for me.
Not only are we not going to cut that, we're going to double that one. Keep going.
Well, that was really the first thing that was the first time I experienced sort of a larger exposure in relation to work in a big way.
Yeah.
And that I would
And you
say,
met David Benioff, and your life's never been the same. You know,
exactly.
We've all been touched by him.
It completely started there for me, as far as consistent work. And so because of Game of Thrones, I got Narcos, and then it was amazing. We shot the entire thing in Colombia.
Yeah.
It was 6 to 7 months a season, and they would have one. It was sort of like it was so location based, which is part of the reason I think the show worked as well as it did, because the physical landscape of the show was kind of its secret weapon, in that where we were shooting was kind of the main character of the show, more than these larger than life, real, dangerous human beings in dangerous circumstances.
What was that like working in Colombia? You know, I'm a soft guy, and all I'm thinking about is humidity, and I'm smelling a little bit of mildew on the wardrobe. Were we in the jungle, and was it tough to get dry?
Sometimes we were in the jungle. The base of production was in Bogota, and Bogota is 9,000 feet.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm thinking the crispy snacks at Crafty were chewy, right? And so it was tough to get a good crunch out of the chips.
You could never.
No, it was dry. It wasn't humid up in Bogota. Bogota is like 4 seasons in a day, and humidity isn't part of it. It gets dry, sunny, rainy, windy, cold. It's generally
like Jason's personality, from Monday to Friday.
It's kind of cold, but
manic.
But sometimes beautiful.
Yeah, hostile but
and
gorgeous.
The cocaine is always just around the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Careful.
Jay, Jay, really what he wants to know is nice hotel and how close is the private airport? You know what I mean? And if he's got that down, then he's happy.
I think it's only prop planes going in and out of those high.
You guys would love Colombia, and
really?
not for the reasons you think.
Really?
It's the best. It's the best. It's the best
I would love
place.
to go. I would love to
I
go.
like the yellow soccer uniforms. That's all I'm
For
into.
the books.
You would like the beaches and the mountains and the people.
I think it's fascinating. I want these guys to hear this, because when I was reading about you, about your parents, the political asylum that they had to seek when you were a kid, and the going around to Denmark, and then
By the way, before you get into this, I want to ask these guys, Pedro, you know this, but we're going to expose these guys. Do you guys know who the dictator was in Chile, who was, ostensibly just a puppet of the American, without looking it up?
Paul Dunger.
No.
Darnester.
Pinochet. Anyway, keep going.
That's
Sorry.
what I said.
Go ahead, Sean. I'm just exposing them, Pedro.
no, I mean if
He said enough vowels and consonants that you can kind of manipulate in the edit that he said Pinochet.
How do you get it all in your head, Will? Will?
But yes?
How do you get it all in your head? How's he so smart, Sean?
Because I don't think about anything else, because my brain,
I know.
I have very little, I have no street smarts.
Pinochet,
So your parents fled, so you guys fled as...
because they were in opposition to Pinochet.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes. No, it's a lie.
Uh-oh. No, but sometimes they build. Sometimes stuff on your Wikipedia gets kind of blown out of proportion. What was the deal there?
Then I want to know how much you paid for your name, because it's the best name in Hollywood.
Well, he's going to get to that because his last name was different.
Right, he had to change it. Here we
Yes, I was born Jose Pedro Pascal, and my parents, they were just very young when they had my sister and myself. My sister's 2.5 years older than me, and there was a cousin of my mother's that was very, very involved in the opposition movement against the military regime. Its proximity to our family, I wouldn't say that my parents were revolutionaries by any stretch of the imagination, but they were
not
very
actual
young
dissidents or anything. Yeah.
No, they were young, liberal college students, and ties from my mom's side to close ties to the opposition movement, just in terms of family. It was a first cousin of my mother's. And my dad was doing his residency at the University Hospital, at La Católica, it's called. And so there was a gunfight that my parents were not involved in, but somebody was wounded, and they brought him to my parents' house so that my father could help tend the wound, hide them for a while. The person that brought them to our house, and I was 4 months old at the time. He was taken into custody and tortured and gave names, and then they came looking for my parents.
Wow.
And so then my parents had to go into hiding for about 6 months, as it's been told to me, and they, like some sort of political thriller from the early 80s, they found a way they saw that there was a change of guard at the Venezuelan embassy where one guy got off the bus, the same bus that the other guy would get on to switch places. And so there was this window where they could
get in there,
climb over the wall, like physically
Wow.
climb over the wall and then land on the other side of the wall and demand asylum, and it worked.
Wow.
One time, Jason told
here we go.
when you were a kid. One time, you went to the guard, and you didn't have the right pass at
Warner
Warner's, and
Brothers.
you had to go to the gate 4 instead of gate 1. Is that true?
And I thought about going over the wall, but I was
You
wearing
had to park in the main
pants.
lot, and you had to end up walking over to
Yeah.
the stage instead of going through gate 1. I heard about
I
this.
jumped on the back of a golf
This is how
cart.
Jason got his first job at Warner Brothers.
It's not dissimilar in the guard, and then the pass didn't match
Then
up.
I dropped my headshot. I had to double back for my headshot, and then a golf cart ran over it. And
Pedro, I remember one of the reasons I know
golf
some of
cart.
this stuff. When I was in 1981, and these guys know I'm good on dates, the movie Missing came out with Sissy Spacek, Jack Lemmon, and John Shea was in it as well. He's the guy who goes missing. And my mom took me to see it in the theater.
Your
I was
mom.
probably too young, my mom. And,
Oh, wow.
But I was probably too young, but she took me anyway, and it had such an impact on me to see how other people were living, and really in a real way, so it's always... I haven't paid attention necessarily, but I always knew that was the reality in that part of the world, especially at that time. And it occurs to me as you're telling this, and you're so good at telling this story, and you're such you do have that riz, you're very charismatic. Has it ever occurred to you, have you ever thought about sort of writing a story based on that, or doing, no? Can we write it, and would you do it?
It's really fascinating.
I mean, it is
making
fascinating, man. What an unbelievable story.
It's totally unbelievable. I saw Missing myself when I was a kid. It had such an imprint in my, brain when I saw it, because of how closely I could relate it to my parents' experience in this.
Oliver Stone direct that?
No, it was Costa Gravas. And my mom was like little and beautiful, like Sissy Spacek,
Yeah.
And I remember, I think about this now in my middle age, that how strange it is to get information in that way through cinema and relate it to a kind of immediate experience of my parents that they aren't sharing with me. Not that it was this big secret or anything like that, but they just we just didn't talk about it.
Really? Have you been back there since?
Yeah. I've been back my whole life. They ended up on the list of pardoned exiles when I was 8 years old.
Oh, great.
And so at that point, my older sister and I, we had already gotten sent back on our own. You know, the late 70s, early 80s, 4-year-olds traveling by themselves, you know, in the custody of like a stewardess.
I did that.
And, but when I was 8, it was like a huge family reunion because there were very large families on both sides that were left behind. And ever since then, we'd go back my whole life. My younger siblings who were born in the States were actually raised in Chile. So the strange circumstance of having been born there, never living there, going there my whole life, it never being home, but it being home, and it's just been this ever-present.
Do you have a place there now that you go back and like a?
I don't have a place there, but both my siblings and my father do.
Yeah. Wow. But a couple other movies you mentioned that were kind of a big, like shifting gears here. Peggy Sue Got Married and Raising Arizona, you said were like huge. And then also your mom wouldn't let you see a certain movie, I think.
My mom didn't care. My mom didn't give a shit. My dad was really against me seeing The Breakfast Club.
Well,
Really?
Yeah. He took me to go see First Blood, The Big Chill.
Sure.
You know, anything that he was interested in seeing, frankly, it didn't matter if it was rated R or not. And
Sean's in The Breakfast Club, and The Lunch Club, and The Snack Club, and The Dinner Club, and The Late.
we're back.
All the sequels.
but yeah, I wasn't allowed to see The Breakfast Club because
Wow.
it
was what?
Sent a bad message.
It was like it was like kids complaining about their parents.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not watching that.
That's hysterical. I have 1,000 questions if you would like to hear one.
Okay.
Yes.
By the way, I guarantee you don't have a fucking 1,000. Okay.
Try one.
I do.
Sean.
So you came to California. Your dad moved you, or your mom and dad both came?
We all came to Orange County in 86, 87.
And then you went to, and then things happened. You went to New York, NYU.
I went to, and then at 18, I went to New York. Yeah.
And you were terrible at waiting tables.
I really was. I was a bad waiter.
And
What restaurant do you remember?
There's so many. Are you guys, this is the 90s. I
lived in New York in the 90s.
I worked at, where's the first place? I started it sort of as a coffee barista person in places that definitely don't exist anymore. And then I got a job at Flamingo East. Do you remember Flamingo East on 2nd Avenue?
Yeah.
There was a place on 7th and 2nd called Virage. I got a job at Time Cafe.
No way.
Got fired from
Time Cafe.
Fez Bar.
Yes.
All of these sound like dancing clubs.
And then I moved up to Flamingo East had a party. They had a upstairs space, and they would throw parties up there. And every once in a while, I got to bartend that. And then
I remember Fred Armisen had his birthday once at Flamingo East, like
really?
20
Upstairs
years ago. Upstairs, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was almost had like a living room. Like there was like a little back room and stuff. Do you remember that? Yeah.
Yeah. It was this beautiful space. And they fired me.
What did you do that was so bad in each of these spots?
yeah, because I read that you got fired over 10 times from different places.
In some instances, one, I wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And
But what about your work was not good?
I didn't have the talent to... I don't know, it does. I think it really does take talent to know how to deal with any kind of customer. More so than the customers is to deal with management, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And to kind of service the system of which you are a part of in terms of that environment. And I wasn't smart enough to kind of, keep myself safe and perceived as a reliable, I was always on time and stuff like that, but they didn't like me enough to keep me if I needed to cover my shift again because I was going to go to Buffalo and shoot a Xerox industrial commercial. And get stuck there, because the acting...
This all sounds like somebody who's had like a major drug problem just covering, you know what I mean? Just going like, they didn't have the... They put up
and then he tried to tell us he was going to do a Xerox.
My inconsistency with the showing up of the thing. And by the way...
All right, so you're bad at waiting tables.
No, I was really innocent. I really was. I was just stupid,
No, you weren't stupid. I don't believe that for a second. But, Pedro, you know that Jason's never, because he grew up in showbiz, this is a true story, he's never had one of those kinds of jobs. And I think that you kind of wish
I've always wanted to.
Had. Yeah.
I've actually always fantasized about waiting tables and bartending, truly.
And I always offer you, every time I have a catering gig over here at the house, when I'm having people over, I say, Jason, come on over.
Yeah.
We'll be
and then I end up doing it.
You know what's scary is that Jason would have been great.
He would have been great.
I do like the idea of each table as like a separate stage, and you're trying to figure out what that audience needs from you so that you get the best possible tip.
Yeah,
some tables want to be left alone. Other tables want a little bit more
here's
show.
What would have tripped you out, and that your managers wouldn't have liked it, because you would have always demanded a hard out. And so you would have been like,
I'm gone before dessert.
My one joke I used to do as a waiter, I'd come by with the food, and I'd put it down, and the customer would say, "Oh, that looks wonderful." And I'd point to my shirt, and I'd go, "Thanks, I just got it."
And that's a tip. That's an extra 5%.
That's stupid. 24 years old, killed every time. So listen, so Pedro, so Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this is the thing that Jason was referring to, which I didn't know. You were credited as Pedro Balmaceda.
Si.
And why Pascal?
Oh, literally, it is not your name. I was just...
No, it is. It's at the tail end.
No, but I mean... Yes, go ahead, sorry.
South Americans, we've got a lot of names. Like Jose Pedro, I never went by... My dad is Jose Pedro, and I'm Jose Pedro, and he grew up as Pepe, and I grew up as Pedro. Because Pedro's not a middle name, so Jose Pedro is like a first name, right? And I just grew up as Pedro. And then... and so Balmaceda... Pascal is what is on your passport, your birth certificate, Pascal being the maiden name. So Balmaceda is my last name. It's my father's name. And I went by Pedro Balmaceda. And there was a very, very meaningful reason to change it to Pascal. And there was also a very practical reason. And they really... meet in the same level of importance because one, Balmaceda was impossible for people to pronounce, and it just wasn't helping me in terms of auditions and casting. And Pascal is very easy to read and say out loud, and it always felt like a part of my identity. And so when my mother passed away 23 years ago, I made a gradual transition to Pascal.
I will say,
that's cool.
I will say it is nice, and I will say Pedro Pascal is a star name.
That's so funny because I resisted it for such a long time. It was something that I wanted to do, before my mother died.
Yeah.
Hilarious. But I always thought it was kind of silly because of the P and the P, and it sounded like maybe I was trying to create, and I don't know what I thought was silly about it. I should have gotten to it much sooner than I did, actually.
Yeah. Now, can I ask you? Can I fan out and dork out about Mandalorian for just a little bit?
Go for it.
While these guys hang
Here
tight.
we fucking go. Jesus, here we
So,
go.
so first of all, I want to know. I've seen every episode. I love it. Me and Scotty, my husband.
The
Scotty.
laser that you had in your belt, there's been a lot of discussion that the safety wasn't turned off and that it came from Glogblort. Is that true? Was it originally from Glogblort?
I want Scotty to do a cross in the background in a full Mandalorian
Ask
accent.
him if it was from Glogblort, because I read on Reddit.
Scotty, do you have any questions about Mandalorian?
Truly asking.
Truly
I
asking
hope
Do you have any?
Scotty.
I have
just
so many.
peeks
So the
in.
Mandalorian. So listen, when you have the mask on, I want to know, can you see, is it really you? Do you do voiceover after? What's it like wearing the suit? Do the jets really work? Like tell me all about it.
It's all real. Yeah, and they're in space too.
Yeah.
Stupid ass.
I'm a huge fan.
We're in space. We've always been in space.
Sure.
And it's really the only way. It's similar to Narcos in that regard, where it's location-based.
Sure.
And there isn't really any other way to achieve it other than traveling to galaxies far, far away from our long past, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Baby Yoda is real. I keep on having this, like, almost sort of this electric shock that goes through my system if I say that. I don't know why. It's totally fine. But Grogu, the child...
Grogu, right. You're supposed to say Grogu, not Baby Yoda.
Is real.
But it's really you under the helmet.
So I can't see very well. I can't see very well in the helmet. There was a very extended experimental phase where I was in the suit for so much of it, and establishing what could be established in terms of a physical language, really drawing so much from guys that were better at it than I was, and.
But how do you do? Do they mic you in the helmet, or do you do voice?
There's a mic pack in the. There's a mic pack.
You're in showbiz, right, Sean?
On your person, but there's also. It's a good question, Sean. There's a mic pack in the helmet, and it's really kind of up against the harder surfaces of your skull.
Do they come mic you in your trailer, or do you just go over to the trolley? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
And is there a snack hole, or do you have to take the whole helmet off?
By
Right,
the way, Sean, is it true? You told me once that just talking The Mandalorian every time you watch it makes you grow goo. Is that true?
I was working on one of those. Will, you beat me.
That's good. I grow a lot of goo when I watch the show. Yeah, for sure. No, that's so interesting. I'm fascinated by the show. I love
it's
the
hard
show.
to see. You kind of there are so many ways that you sort of need to do a head tilt for the camera that makes it so that you can't even really look into the eyes of the human or puppet that you're acting with, and in some instances you feel really really cool, and it takes care of most of the work, and I have a lot of fun in post because Jon Favreau gives me a lot of opportunity to kind of edit with him and go over things that they got maybe on the day, and it's really
like
surgical, technical work that I've never. Yeah, it's like exactly.
You don't have a lot of sync issues, right? And not a lot of lip flap matches.
Correct.
Yeah, because you could just do
Now,
it.
you know what I'm thinking about in that helmet is just it's odor, you know.
Yeah, like your own breath.
Multiple episodes and stuff. So do you have like a lavender wipe that you can go
Who
in
else
there?
wore
and
it
just
before
kind of-
you?
Yeah.
Odor, of course.
Yeah. Do you put a flower in there, or what happens?
I was very aware of like my. Not only that, but sort of the dark plastic of the tea, you know, because you're like this.
Yeah.
It's almost like what your breath smells like, like cakes on, stays there.
Yeah, that's what Jason's
And you're not
saying.
handing that helmet off to second team for lighting, are you? You don't want them in there.
Or sound.
They got their own, right? Different helmet, different flower.
You know, you'd be surprised.
It's so real, Pedro. It's so real. This is giving Jason. That would keep him up at night if he thought that his stand-in was wearing.
What do you mean we don't have a second team helmet like that? That should have just come from the shop.
Pedro, what you need to know is what would happen is the whole thing with the helmet. If Jason was doing that, it would go to Bloom, his assistant, and then Amanda, his wife. She'd be deep in on the cleaning of the helmet. Jason, there's no way that Jason can have this helmet going to somebody else. He would hand the problem up to eventually his wife and Zach and Aline and everybody. There'd be emails. Guys, we got to get Jason's helmet situation sorted out before he shows up on set. Meanwhile, Pedro's a normal, nice guy. He shows up. He's like, I'll just roll with it. You know?
Yeah.
No, you complain.
I had 3 callbacks for Mandalorian, and I think that was the issue. I think ultimately
was the
Favreau
issue.
is just, this guy's a problem.
You couldn't come to an agreement on that. That's understandable.
Sedaris is on that show, right?
Amy Sedaris.
No, yes, she is.
Yeah, she's the great.
That was you know, there was an instant with Amy Sedaris specifically, and that was where she made me laugh so hard that I spat into the helmet. and that was a moment where I came into a clear understanding of the close proximity that I had to my own to the things that are in my mouth.
Your own
my saliva, and it's, you know, or like lunch or breakfast or something.
She's
the best.
I love her.
Yeah.
But listen, I want to talk about your new movie too. It's what's it called? Strange Way of Life? Is that what it is?
Strange Way of Life.
Strange Way of Life.
Extraña forma de vida.
And it's a 30-minute film. That's it? It's just one film?
It's a 30-minute short written and directed by Pedro Almodovar, starring Ethan Hawke.
And it's gay cowboys who travel across the desert to find each other 25 years apart.
Former lovers, and one travels across the desert to see him again, and it is shot in the same places that Sergio Leone was shooting his spaghetti westerns in that southern region of Spain.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
On the same sets.
That's cool.
And Saint Laurent does the costumes.
Wow.
And it's me and Ethan. And I'd never worked with Ethan before. I actually listened to him on your podcast.
Wasn't he great?
He's awesome, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's
that's
so
great.
cool.
I love him.
It was so great to get to hear you guys get to know him.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I spent the summer with him, and, you know, I saw movies that he was in, starting with, like, The Explorers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Dead Poet Society and Reality Bites, and then he published a book, and then he was on Broadway, and then he was off Broadway, and then he directed off Broadway,
Incredible
and then he was
career.
like working with friends, and then we were doing, you know, this thing with Pedro Almodovar, whose movies I saw growing up. It was kind of a family favorite, and it just meant a lot. In all earnestness, it was this moment of sort of being listened to and taken seriously by these two influences was a very surreal experience for me, because he was my scene partner and this was our director, and they wanted to be collaborative, and they wanted to, I don't know, all get on the same page at the same level. And I felt so influenced by both of them in my upbringing that, you know, as corny as it may sound, I'm like, these guys care what I think.
Yeah.
And that was...
But you know what? But you know why, Pedro? You know why? And I mean this too. You earned that seat there because you're really good at what you do.
Yeah.
And I hope
simple.
you see what we all see, which is an incredible talent, incredible artist, and you deserve to be there. And that's why you were there in that scene with those guys.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Will.
I
Where do
love
we
that.
get to see? Where's it going to come out?
It's going to premiere at Cannes.
Oh,
Gross.
He did a previous short
Jesus,
with...
that was such a nice story, and then you fucking ruined it with your canned bullshit.
I've never been.
Did you get to keep any of the? Are you going to go?
I'm gonna try to go. I want to go really badly. He did a previous short with Tilda Swinton, so this is the second of what could be
that's cool.
3 installments of these 30-minute English language
Gotcha.
forays, because
That's cool.
everything he's ever done before is in his native
Hey,
language.
Pedro, I'm Tekka Vale. Just FYI, I'm just putting it out there to the universe.
Did you get to keep any of the Saint Laurent cowboy stuff? I bet it's
No.
some pretty cool stuff. No.
They don't give me nothing. I asked for the green jacket. If you want to look up the trailer right now, you see me in this kind of like bright green Jimmy Stewart,
Yeah.
you know, denim
They
cowboy
said no. They want to hold on to it for possible reshoots.
jacket. No, they just gave me a flat no.
Jason wants to know: was it moldy? Was the jacket moldy? Did he smell anything?
Did it breathe right out there? Because I imagine it was pretty hot.
And
Right?
now-
A lot of
and-
hard
It
sun.
didn't wick.
Yeah.
It didn't have a wicking quality.
And the last thing I want you to do, Paige, if only if you want to, on SNL, you were so fucking funny on Saturday Night Live. Can you just do a little bit of the voice?
Which one?
Can you just do a little
I don't
bit?
know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's
What
so
is that?
fucking...
Stop asking me. I'm not comfortable with that.
It's really funny.
I've been putting on an accent this whole time, and now I finally get to talk to myself.
I could listen to that for 9
Well, if I'm
hours.
talking to you guys, I'll always talk to you guys. Bye.
Pedro, thank you for joining us, my friend.
Pedro, we love you
are
very
a
much.
talent and a friend.
Honestly, you're such a fan, such a huge fan, man. You're so good at what you
Yeah,
do.
keep
doing
going,
it.
my
I
friend.
really love talking to you guys.
Bye, Pedro. We love
Have
you.
a great rest of your day.
Thank
I'm
you.
just going to
man.
take the headphones off because I have no idea what
Yeah,
That's
button
fine.
to press.
Just take them off and walk
Slam
away.
the iPad.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye, buddy.
Bye. Man, he is great.
Yeah. I'm such a massive fan of The Last of Us. Did you guys watch it?
I haven't yet.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, did you ever play the game?
I did not play the game. No.
Yeah, it's so good.
I saw the prequel,
Uh-oh, here it
The First of Us. Did you not see? He was.
That's so dumb.
Of course, it's dumb. What do you
This
want
is a
from me?
dad. This is a great clean
What are
dad
you
joke.
fucking- it's
you
a
can
clean
enjoy.
joke that
Do you
works
need a
anywhere.
headset to play that game? Is that one of those where you gotta
You can.
use Will's
I think you
headset?
can.
What do you mean, Wills? Millions of people enjoy themselves.
But wait,
with that. He's
but
such
what
a talent, that guy.
But isn't it amazing that like he started out so like he's been doing this forever. So when Game of Thrones hit, and when you just like Wonder Woman, like all these big things that he's done, it kind of came out of what seemingly always the same story all the time. That it seemingly came out of nowhere, but he's been doing this forever.
That's what I meant.
And
That was
that's
my first. Yeah.
yeah. So that's why he's like down to earth and normal because he's like. You guys are making all the hype. I'm not making all the hype. I'm just working. You know what I mean?
I saw him in an interview, one of the where they had him strapped to a lie detector, and he's just like so comfortable. Okay, an interview, I guess it was more like an interview. Anyway, whatever it was, he was at a police station and he was strapped to a lie detector. No, but he was doing, and he was just like I was marveling at how comfortable he is in his own skin and how relaxed and normal he is, and that's why I asked that question. It's like. You can tell he's the guy who's paid his dues and he's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's not like, oh my God, this is
Yeah,
so
he's the
crazy.
greatest. Jason, you got to run. Where are you heading to? And where are you going right now?
I get you some charity thing. Are you saving some kids?
Yeah, I gotta go feed a bunch of folks.
Are you gonna drive? Or are you gonna ride your?
No, he's going to drive and then he's going to probably ship.
Bicycle.
Oh, it was bye.
I was gonna say bike. Bye.
I love you, Sean. Have a great show tonight, you
All right, I
stud.
love you too.
Smart.